Bunch of talent movements in and around TNA. We have Eric Young exiting TNA. This guy might have the record for the most amount of stays at TNA over the years, going back to like 2003, I think was when this guy first popped up at TNA. So TNA did put out a statement that they have come to terms on the release of Eric Young, effective immediately. EY has had a legendary TNA career, including twice as TNA World Champion. We wish him the best in his future endeavors. And then Young himself weighed in on this. He gave himself his own statement to leave. He said today, "The internet is effing wild. 3 things to know about the news today," with multiple exclamation marks. Number 1, I asked for my release. They granted it. 2, I was never on a handshake deal. I have had a binding contract the entire time. Number 3, I will work where I want, how I want, and for whom I want. My track record, resume, accolades, and reputation are proof of that. See you soon. More exclamation marks. So there you have Eric.
And then this image, like, I hope. I mean,
is that Boss Rutan and Kurt Angle mixed together with some?
It certainly does not look like Eric Young. This cartoon drawing that I hope is by a real artist.
I missed this. That's yeah. Well.
So what is he saying here? He asked for his release. They granted it.
Yeah, which I don't think any. I mean, I can't speak for every outlet, but I think everyone was aware he had asked for his release. Anyway,
where do you see him going on?
A coach at WWE.
Okay, sure, certainly. Like
I would argue you could do a lot worse than putting a guy like him on NXT as a coach / performer. Especially with Sean Spears, they recently did this turn. You do need some of those guys. I don't think that's the worst idea to have someone that can do some matches with these younger guys, but I see that kind of being his ceiling in WWE.
So I feel like I don't disagree that like there's room for sort of like veterans, on the roster. But I also think like TV time is so scarce, even on NXT, that like I think anybody you put on air should have at least some hope of ultimately turning into a main roster product, right? And that's where like an Ethan Page I thought was very effective. Ricky Saints you could say was effective. They're veterans, so they could teach your new generation things, but they also get the reps and the exposure that would ultimately turn them into perhaps bigger stars for the main roster.
I think you can achieve both. Like in TNA, he's done this, like he did the program with Leon Slater, then just recently with Ricky Sosa, where it's someone that is getting that next guy ready. And I think it does behoove these guys to be working with, experienced veterans that, yes, this is not a guy that we're going to cash in on for a big main roster run, but he's going to be putting in the work to the guy that will be going up to the main roster. Like this guy, maybe he can come and give Keanu Carver some guidance potentially, but that's where I expect. And then he'll be back in TNA
eventually
at some point. Yeah. I mean, for all you want to say, Eric Young is one of the few guys, maybe the only guy, that legit did leave the company when he found out Vince McMahon was back in 2022. And there's plenty of people that they won't even publicly denounce Vince McMahon, or even if privately they do. The amount of people that would actually leave a company, like that's pretty much it. And I think like that is very rare in wrestling, someone that would do that. And this guy did that in 2022 and just was like, he's back, I'm out of here. And he left. All right. Other talent. Mike Santana. It's been reported by PW Insider. His contract is about to expire and he is not scheduled for the tapings in Albany, New York this week. So I think it would be pretty much all but guaranteed that this man is, well, I will say WWE / NXT bound. Where would you imagine that he would be slotted first? And would it be advantageous for him to go to NXT first?
So he would be one of those guys who I think would fulfill, an Ethan Page or a Ricky Saints type of role. Somebody who's a veteran, knows what he's doing. Somebody you can build the younger generation around. As an NXT champion, I mean, it feels like a really strong position for him. But he's also, is he well known enough for a big main roster sort of like role? Like, will he get a big reception when he shows up? Yeah, I think so. Like, depending on the market.
NXT, he's gotten over huge every time he's showing up. Like,
if Santana showed up at MSG, like for this show coming up, yeah, I think he'd get a huge reaction. So I do
Right,
think like he's main roster ready, no doubt about it. The
promo wise, this guy is a great talker. I'm always, I thought Ricky Saints would just assimilate so well to the main roster. He's really struggled. You just don't know who's going to catch on, what they're going to have to navigate. And like this guy could end up being, look, it's Tito Santana's grandson.
I would say yes, man. I would say a main roster call up, like, or not even call up, like a main roster transition immediately. You know, he's very skilled, and like looking at Ricky Saints as a prime example of somebody who I think was very hot going into NXT has completely lost that, you know, upon debut, I thought.
And then the other name is Big Cass, who's expected to leave AEW. Fightful is reporting that his deal is up within the next week, and he has informed the company he will be going. And the expectation is the possibility of a reunion with Enzo in WWE, which is interesting on several fronts. Of course, Enzo left under a really dark cloud in 2018. And quite frankly, as Big Cass, this guy left in a pretty, like, this guy just fizzled on the main roster, left the company, had tons of personal problems, and totally rebuilt his career, his life. Like, it is a pretty feel-good story, the way this guy is returning to WWE, because you would have never expected this guy to be back in that company. But he had a very good, like, this was the argument of TNA that took a chance on what was his name there? W. Morrissey. Maybe that's the worst, just terrible name. And then, you know, rehabbed himself, and AEW was interested. Had a fine run in AEW to an extent. I don't think he reached his potential there. And, you know, WWE, it was, first of all, do you like, if you're bringing this guy back with Enzo, do you like that repairing this, you know, decade removed?
I do because it presents like a great comeback story, you know, just personally for both of these guys. And I mean, you know, they love their comeback stories. You know, they love telling it with Drew McIntyre, somebody who was let go and then came back. They love telling it with Cody. They love telling it with CM Punk. And this presents another opportunity for them to do that. I mean, they were a team. We just talked about WrestleMania 34?
Yes.
33. And I mean, it's almost hard to believe how over these guys were in a relatively short amount of time, and how quickly they kind of both left, and well, at least Enzo, you know, like, and how quickly all of that really fizzled out.
Do you remember the feud these two had?
No,
it was dreadful.
Was it like did he get knocked out on the ropes? Was that the one of any whatever? They clearly have a, you know, potential that was not reached, and I think that sets up for like a great comeback story. Now they're both now 39. You know, they're kind of well past maybe most people's physical primes, but they also have like incredible, I would say, chips on their shoulder, most likely, and probably like a great motivation to maybe right, you know, what was wronged the last time around. I'm very curious to see that.
It's July on the Post Wrestling Cafe, and that means our extensive G1 coverage begins starting July 11th. We're going to have reviews of every single G1 card right up to and including the finals in the middle of August. Plus, Rewind Away takes a look at 2 episodes of Heels. We're also going to be going back to 2005 for a review of WrestleMania 21, and it is the start of our double shot episodes covering this season of Dark Side of the Ring. Plus, we are going to dive into the 3rd season of WWE Unreal. All that and so much more can be yours by signing up to the Post Wrestling Cafe. It gets you XL editions of Rewind to Raw, Dynamite, and SmackDown, Collision Course on a weekly basis, MCU later, and so much more.